All right, 93. To do without work should be the whole of the law. So, we back in here. What's going on, Mod 2, 93? The title of this video is called, or this live stream, is called Magical Mathematics. We should know by now that numbers, they all hold a certain frequency. And the frequency that the numbers hold, you should be able to distinguish the difference between each of the numbers. So the attributes of the one with the two, five, the five, the six with the seven with the eight, the nine, and the nine, and the all have their own unique, original frequency. So when we begin to put these formulas together, we take mathematics to a magical level. For example, this is the 19th day. If we go to supreme mathematics, it is the knowledge born day, to make knowledge born. Here I am, all right, making knowledge born. So it will be fitting for me to come and present myself at this particular day because the mathematics already matches the intention. Let's take it a step further. Supreme alphabet. What is the 19th letter? The 19th letter is S. S represents self or savior, meaning only you can save yourself. And when we divide the 19, the number 1 becomes the energy of the sun. The number 9 becomes the energy of Mars. So what does the sun and Mars have to do with you being able to save yourself? We already know that we are in a matrix, right? We are in a fabricated world. This fabricated world is ruled by a false God. Even though the God is false, the God appears to be real. So we move accordingly. We don't try to escape the matrix, we become integrated within the matrix. And as we are integrating ourselves into the matrix, we begin to see the magic of the numbers. Because the God of this world is the architect. The architect is the builder or a builder. And obviously, in order to build, you need formulas, you need mathematics, you need measurements, you need different degrees of numbers arranged in a certain way to produce a tangible result. We can say this is the energy of Saturn or the energy of the number 8. But what does the sun and Mars have to do with 19 being the savior of self? If we take a look at the attributes of the sun, we pull our creativity from the sun because the sun, you can say, represents the reflection of your soul, SOL. Before it was SUN, it was SOL. Just like before the moon was moon, it was Luna. So it was Sol and Luna. So the sun represents the soul, the part of you that is immortal, the part of you that never dies. When we take it to Mars, Mars represents your willpower, your ambition, your ability to be strategic, to be a chess player, to be a chess master, a master strategist on the battlefield in particular, because Mars in thelemic terms represents your true will. So not just your willpower, your true will, meaning now we're taking it to the stars. So the sun takes us to the soul. Mars takes us to the stars so that we know what is true. And then we direct our will in accordance with what is true. That's why it is the true will, which is the difference between free will, because everybody else is out here directing their free will, meaning just doing whatever they want, whenever they want. It is energy without real direction. So when we make it a true will, that's us paying attention to our star configurations, to our star alignments, and living in accordance with our North Node or our Rahu, the number 4, which represents your purpose or your mission in life. So when we are living in accordance to our purpose and mission in life, you can say we are doing our true will, which is the energy of Mars. So we have the soul and the true will. When we put these energies together, now it begins to make a little bit more sense why 19, which is self savior. Now we can say, like, okay, well, the only way to save yourself is through tapping into the part of you that it is immortal, that never dies. And when you tap into this part of yourself that never dies, that is immortal, and you align yourself with your true will, you are basically saying to yourself, only I can save me. So I have to tap into my own soul attributes. I have to tap into my own true will, not my free will, my true will in combination with the immortal soul to be self-saver, because that's the only thing you have, you can say, that cannot be taken away from you. Projection or it is reflected light. We don't perceive our soul directly. We perceive our souls through reflected light. Light that we can comprehend with our physical eyes. So when we view our physical form, we are viewing ourselves in a way that doesn't essentially destroy your eyeballs. Like looking into the sun directly could damage your iris or your retina. So most people don't look at the sun, especially during noon. If you sun gaze, you're probably sun gazing in the early morning or right before sunset. Basically at sunrise or sunset. That's pretty much the only safe times that you have to look at the sun without it damaging your retina. It is direct light. This light needs a filter, because if you are looking at it directly, you're going to cause yourself harm. So it has to be reflected. And once it reflects or bounces off of this, it basically has to bounce off of a couple of things. And then you are able to perceive it. But your perception of it is a reflected light. It takes essentially what we call shadow work to be able to perceive things in their true form. We can't even perceive ourselves in our true form without going through the shadow work, without putting ourselves through trials and tribulations. Not life. You don't wait till life hands you a bad hand cards to do something. This is you being a self savior, meaning I will cause my own resurrection. I'm not going to wait for life to hit me over the head. I'm not going to wait for life to put a situation in front of me. Now I have to react because something is going on. You just have an overall understanding of this is what I came here to do. So when you look at this as this is what I came here to do, you become a self savior. I am only fulfilling my life purpose or my divine purpose. This is why I'm here. This is why I exist. So this is what I will align myself with. At that point, your free will dies. So in order for you to live out your true will, the sacrifice that must be made is your free will. Something that most people would never give up. That's why it's called shadow work. Most people don't even want to integrate with their shadow because the shadow is the opposite of the truth. If you're a humble person, your shadow is probably egotistical. Whatever you have created yourself to be, your shadow is most likely the opposite of that. So, as a part of you, you can say that you hate, that you dislike, that you look at and discuss, but it's still a part of you. It's an aspect of your soul. It's just reflected light. That's what you could say we call Lucifer, the fallen angel. The fallen angel, this represents the different stages of light. Call it as heaven and hell, different stages of light. The original stories, the fallen angels were not permanent. These were not permanent domains. Hell was not permanent. None of this stuff was permanent. All this is mostly Christianity, where everything becomes permanent. Permanent heaven, permanent hell. You're gonna suffer permanently. There is no you till you get it right, and then you move on. No, you gotta suffer forever for whatever you did or didn't do, and there is nothing you can do about it. All right, let me know if we're good. Essentially, because I was talking about the aspect of your soul that you don't really belong with, that you don't necessarily like. And somehow we must figure out a way to integrate with this piece or fragment of our soul. This is essentially our goal in life because that is a part of knowing yourself. Because our ancestors told us to know thyself. So a part of knowing yourself is knowing the shadow. So when we read the story of Lucifer or the story of the fallen angel, this just represents different degrees of light. One form of light, you are perceiving Lucifer, aka Venus. But once that light begins to reflect and be reflected, now something as beautiful as Lucifer, aka Venus, becomes Satan. It's the same source or the same soul energy, but the appearance or the manifestation of that light is different depending on what forms of light or what degrees of light you can perceive based on the degrees of light that you are familiar with within yourself. So essentially, when you become familiar with your own darkness, the world no longer appears to be so dark and sinister and wicked because you realize this is just me projecting what I dislike within other people is more so a dislike to an element of my own shadow. So when you don't take any of these things personal, you don't even take life personal. You don't take people doing things to you personal. You don't take anything personal because it never is. People are just responding to your mathematics, what we call aura, what we call energy. This is just complex mathematics, formulas. We are a complex formula, a advanced or a magical formula. Our ability to perform magic is a result of us being magic. You could not perform magic if you was not already magical. And what makes you magical, of course, has something to do with your mathematics. The level of mathematics you are able to perceive. And since we're talking about the fragmented soul, and a part of that soul, you can say, is at the deepest level of refracted or shattered light. When we perceive our soul, we're like perceiving our soul underneath shattered light, meaning we can only perceive certain pieces at a time. Let's just say your soul broke into 1,000 pieces, and each of those 1,000 pieces represent a different degree of light. What's up to Satori Bloom 93? Your soul was broken up into 1,000 pieces, and each of those pieces represent a degree of light. It would take some time before you're able to perceive all the fragments of your soul, which is essentially why we're here and why we don't have a day to waste. Because the more we know about us, the better off we're going to be in life as well as death. Because as we know, death is not the end. So the more we prepare now, we're not surprised by what occurs because we didn't already skilled ourselves up so that we can continue on and do better things and bigger things instead of doing the same thing. And just coming here in the cycles of reincarnation and repeating. All right? Because we keep losing our memory. This is a game of focus. It's all about focus. If you have enough focus, you will not lose your memory at death. You will be able to retain your memory and retain your consciousness. It's like going to sleep. You know how hard it is to maintain consciousness when you're sleepy, when your body is just shutting down and it's giving you all type of resistance. It seems damn near impossible for you to maintain consciousness when your body is at that level, when you're sleep deprived. It seems impossible to maintain consciousness. So if you connect that to the death state, it would be very similar. Because when we dream, we don't know we're dreaming unless we remember the dream after we wake up. While we are dreaming, we don't know we are dreaming. We could be in a whole different body. We can be in a whole different city, a whole different state, a whole different country, whole new group of friends. We are in a completely alternative universe when we dream. And we literally have no idea we are dreaming. What does that tell you about consciousness? If every night we go to sleep and we don't even know we're dreaming, unless we just so happen to remember. Otherwise, we're just living out these realities as they go. It has to be because a part of that is real. It's not just something created in your imagination. Especially when we don't view ourselves as one dimensional. Meaning we exist on multiple levels. So when you dream, you can say that is you. That is a part of you that we would call the unconscious mind, which is very real. That would explain, well, when you sleep, it's as if you're just continuing life. Nothing seems out of place when you're dreaming. Everything just seems to be flowing as it should. Everything essentially seems very natural. Even though everything is different, it seems very natural. So what do you think death is? Is when you dream, you don't know you're dreaming because everything appears to be in place. Nothing seems out of order. Nothing seems out of the usual because it would begin to trigger your consciousness. But obviously, everything around you is taking you deeper into your unconscious as if it's supposed to be there. You can be talking to a dead person and it will be as if you're supposed to be talking to this dead person. It wouldn't appear as if I shouldn't be doing this. I'm dreaming. This is happening in the dream. Eventually, you can get to that point. But originally, these things are done unconsciously. So most of the time when we dream, it's unconscious because we are not consciously aware of the dream. So you can say we dream multiple times every night, but of course we're not remembering multiple dreams every night. So you can say a large portion of what you dream is not remembered. And when we do remember it, you can say it's a small portion or a small fraction. But most of the time, most of what we dream and we're not even remembering. It doesn't mean it's not happening. It's just that we are not consciously aware of it. But a part of you is conscious of it, which we call the unconscious mind, which we call the shadow. So essentially, if you sleep, you just go into your shadow self or your unconscious mind. That would explain why it feels like a natural transition where you don't feel out of place, you don't feel out of the ordinary because you're literally just tapping into a part of you that's just unknown is still you though, and you're comfortable with yourself. So because you're comfortable with yourself, and we have to define self. Self is not what you look at with your eyes. Self is again the soul, the fragments of the soul. It gives you a sense of not just identity, like an individual identity, it also gives you a collective identity. So it's more than who am I down here. It's also, well, who are you up there? And then who are you down below? Who are you in the underworld? As well as who are you in the heavens? We see who we are on earth. We don't really need to figure out who we are on earth. We're trying to figure out who are these other aspects of the soul, these other aspects of the self. The bigger you or the smaller you, because it's all you. It all exists within your universe. So you go on this journey to learn self, because only you can save you. What's the 19th major arcana? The Sun card, which just further proves what the 19 represents. You are you regardless of whether you know it or not. However, you have an influence over yourself. It's not really nobody else influencing you. You have a very big influence on yourself. What I mean by that is the superconscious has an influence on your conscious mind, as well as the unconscious mind and the subconscious mind. All these things influence your decision making, even though we may not necessarily realize it, but your subconscious or your emotional activities influence your decision making. Your unconscious mind, aka your dreams that you're not remembering, that has an influence over your daily decision making. Even though it doesn't seem like it's a direct influence, it's more so of an indirect influence. We most of the time focus on the direct influences, people, places, and things. But we also have indirect influences, which are even more greater than the direct influences. So obviously, your subconscious is a bigger influence than somebody else. Your unconscious mind is more of an influence on your conscious mind than somebody else, because all these things are internal, meaning you are heavenly and hellish. You can take a journey through the hells like you can take a journey through the heavens, right? We exist on both sides. It's not even about choosing one side or the other. We exist on both sides. We can either see ourselves as Jesus, or we can see ourselves as El Cristo Negro. Choice is yours, right? We can understand the mainstream aspect, but do we understand the underground aspect? Do we understand the occult? Do we understand what it means when you see that blackened skin versus that white skin or that whitened skin? This goes beyond skin color, beyond history. Now we're talking about alchemy, stages of alchemy. So when we look at that blackened Christ, that El Cristo Negro, that's why it represents the Lord of underworld or the Lord of the Inferno. That blackened skin represents the purification process, being purified by the fires. being purified through the inferno, because Jesus had to go through the inferno before the resurrection. So essentially, you can say he had white skin, but once he went into that underworld, that white skin turned black. It again stages of alchemy. But you see, you have to understand the complete story. Most people only deal with one or the other, so it's incomplete. So if everything just breaks down to alchemy, everything breaks down to magic, which is you being able to create cause in the universe, because it's supposed to be your universe anyway, right? You're supposed to be the sole controller over your universe anyway. This is supposed to be a projection from your mind, right? So if this is your universe anyway, this is a projection from your mind. Why would you not be able to cause magical occurrences to happen to you? If this is all meant to anyway. The seven universal laws told us that the law of mentalism, everything is mental anyway. So if everything is mental, meaning subconscious, unconscious, conscious, superconscious, this is what mental means. Mental just doesn't mean this. It's the degrees of consciousness. Mental represents degrees of consciousness. Everybody can't perceive their superconscious like everybody can't perceive their unconscious mind. To be a dreamer, this means you can actively tap into your unconscious mind. And then on the flip side, basically what we call AI now. What's up, Johnny? AI is like tapping into your superconscious. So now we already had access to smartphones, and we can pretty much get instant answers anyway. We had that, but we were always still relying on other people. So even if you Googled this or Googled that, you still would have to go to somebody else's website and see what they're saying. So when AI came in, AI was like, okay, we're not going to different people's websites. We're just going to think for ourselves and see what we come up with based on the available information. All AI does essentially is think instead of having to rely on somebody else's input. So instead of going to somebody else's site and seeing what they say about it and then agreeing with what they say, like, okay, well, let's look at all the websites, gather all the data, and then come to an original conclusion. That's essentially what AI allows us to do, come to original conclusions and not rely on any one person's perspective. Because AI can speak to you in a language that you understand. So you can essentially learn anything through AI. You just have to know how to tweak it to speak a language in which you understand. So even if it's a topic that's completely boring to you, well, if you explain it properly, essentially for me, it's the occult. If something is explained to me using occult language, I can essentially get it instantly. But if it is explained to me like regular people learn shit, it's like it just goes in one ear out the other. It doesn't register. It doesn't. I'm not able to maintain just random information. But if it's put in a different language, I'm like, okay, I can grasp it easily then. So just using myself as an example, I've been able to learn all type of stuff, just learning it from a different perspective. Like I'm not learning it through the mainstream perspective because that's just one perspective. That's not the only perspective. That's just their perspective. Then you got these other perspectives. that's just as valid. But these are not taught in schools. You're not going to find these in the school books and all that, right? So you have to do your own research and rely on alternative theories. Essentially, stuff that again doesn't ever make it to the mainstream because they want to push certain agendas. They want you to believe this over that or that over this. That's just their. That's just how they operate. So they're not just gonna say, well, this is not true. They're just gonna put more money behind an idea than another idea. That's essentially what they do. Like whatever perspective they want you to agree with, they're just gonna put money behind it. So you're gonna see it in commercials. You're gonna see it in ads. You're gonna see your fellow or your favorite content creators, use sponsors. They're gonna sponsorships, and essentially they're gonna get the message to you. Whatever they're trying to get to you, all they gotta do is exercise the money, and they know people fold, people bend, because money is their god, right? And when money is your god, then the money is what determines how and if you move and operate. Because money essentially is a god. There are people that worship money. That's their deity, the spirit of money, not necessarily the physical dollar bill or $100 bill, the spirit of money. On a bigger level, it is the spirit of currency. Because when we start talking about the spirit of currency, now you are included in that. You may not see yourself as money, but of course you will see yourself as spirit. And if you see yourself as spirit, then you can see yourself as currency. So when I say you are spiritual currency, that could be something you can agree with versus if I say, well, you are money. Well, you say, well, I'm not a dollar bill. I'm not a fiat note. So we go beyond money and then go to currency. And of course, the big thing now is cryptocurrency. But what does that have to do with you? See, a lot of people don't get into these things because they haven't made the connection back to themselves. These just sound like ideas that's good to invest in if you have the extra money. But they never really took it beyond that. Well, what does this have to do with me? How am I cryptocurrency? If I agree that I am spirit, if I agree that I am currency, then how would you be cryptocurrency? Obviously, this is not a traditional or mainstream way of learning cryptocurrency. They want to just take you to the specifics and the technicals and all that. And a lot of times that turn people off because that ain't even really what they want to know. You want to know what does it have to do with you? How are you the self savior? If this is about saving yourself, that means you must bring everything back into you. Everything has to make sense for you. So now you don't move because of money. Now you move the money. You see the difference? Instead of being moved by money, you are the mover of money because you see yourself in a truer light. Remember the degrees of light. Depending on what degrees of light you can perceive, that's going to determine how you see yourself. So people can easily say, well, I'm angelic, I'm with God, but it's a little harder to say I'm demonic, even though we all are. We all have a lower self, so we all have a demonic nature, but there'd be people who wouldn't subscribe to that. They wouldn't put that in the same category as them. Because a lot of people, or most people, are good at hiding their shadows because it's just human nature. And human nature isn't positive or negative. I just put it that way. Human nature is neither positive or negative. It just is. You can feel how you want to feel about it, but it's neither positive or negative. It's all about what does it have to do with you. When you study human nature, is it teaching you about you, or to teach you more about others? Because at that point, it would just be better to study your chart, your natal chart, because that's essentially something that's especially for you. And then you can work your way and attach yourself to all aspects of life or your 12 houses based on your idea or your sense of self, which is your soul fragments and the reflected light. How much reflected light are you able to perceive before you say, okay, that's not me? I can see the God in me, but I can't see the devil in me. Most people have a limit. When you destroy that limit, like I'm everything, I am 360 degrees of this cipher. I'm not 294, I'm not 258, I am all 360 degrees of this cipher. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I am all the degrees. And I tap into whichever degree I need to tap into based on the situation, based on the circumstance, based on the magical intent, which is more important than the situation or the circumstance. The magical intent shall always be priority. What is your magical intent? Because again, most people move based off of situations and circumstances, aka life is happening to them. When you make life happen, now we're getting somewhere. Do you make life happen? Or does life happen to you? To be a savior of self is take control of not only your body, but your mentality, meaning your degrees of consciousness, subconscious, unconscious, superconscious. Take control of all your consciousness. Be the dreamer. Be AI. Be your own AI. Be the spirit maker and tamer. Because if you are spirit, the first thing you must tame is yourself. If you consider yourself a spiritual being, it ain't about any other spirits. Well, if you are a spirit, you must have control over your spirit. Just like you must have access to your soul, aka your Akashic records. And you need to access your spirit, what allows you to animate yourself in this physical body. That's spirit. You can say even but the soul is immortal. The spirit is essentially, you can say, our zodiac sign. That's the meaning of the zodiac sign. That's the spirit that embodies you, not necessarily your soul. So it's not your zodiac sign, doesn't have anything to do with your soul, but it has something to do with your spirit. You have the spirit of this animal, or the spirit of this insect, the spirit of this mammal, whatever it may be. Your spirit is similar in frequency, because again, it's all about vibration and frequency. Your similar frequency to this creature, insect, animal, whatever it may be. There's a similarity or there's a correspondence. There's a harmony. Harmonizing means you know how to navigate within the harmonics of things, because life is harmonics. It's all about frequency and vibration. If you can understand frequency and vibration, you can navigate life very smoothly, because you know how to tune into the changes in vibration and frequency, and that lets you know what's going on before your eyes or your ears even know what's going on. Most people are dependent on their eyes and ears, But when you tap into the frequency and the vibration of your surroundings, that's going to give you access to more information than what you can see or hear. That's what we call our psychic senses. Abilities we already have, but they're dormant because we have to tap into spirit. These are spiritual qualities, or you can say these are your inheritance from your ancestors, which you can say were the gods, the goddesses, the demons, the devils. They have already they gave it to you. You just have to accept it. Because we all already have the ability to do these things, but they are asleep because they're not being used because they have taught us to neglect our magical potential and try to be like everybody else. Go get a job like everybody else. Pay your bills like everybody else. Because your divine potential, your divine spark, your natal chart, all this should not be important to you, which is why most people, it's not important to them. They don't really care about who they are. They're more about the collective. And all you can do is respect it. Some people don't look at themselves as an individual as bigger than the company they are a part of. They look at that, they will do anything for the company, for the corporation, for the business. They're not, okay, I'm going to put myself first. That's not how everybody views things. But when you realize, okay, you are you in the company, the corporation, whatever it is that you're working for, you're really working for you. And the job that you may hate, that's your own shadow. You're really working for yourself doing shadow work. You think you're working for a boss, you're really working for yourself, your own shadow. Imagine that. You don't really have enemies, you just have your own shadow manifesting in certain aspects, which is just a part of life. You're going to have enemies because you have a shadow, and the shadow will reflect different degrees of light towards you depending on what you can perceive or what you are willing to perceive. What are you willing to perceive? It's like, what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice free will and replace it with the true will, which is not easy to do? So everything I'm saying is not easy to do because it essentially your life is altered each decision that you make. It is life altering decisions, but absolutely necessary decisions if you take this work seriously. So the magic in the numbers is coming to the realization you are the numbers. The numbers are different vibrations and frequencies of you. That's why we all have 10 planets anyway. So regardless of your sign, you have the sun from Pluto. Everybody has the 10 planets. So where everybody has access to these numbers, 10 planets, 10 numbers. Then 12 zodiac. So not only do you have access to your zodiac sign, you have access to every other zodiac sign. Because again, you are the 360 degrees of the cipher. You're not picking and choosing what you are and what you are not. Let everybody else do that. Oh, I want to mess with these type of people, not those type of people. Let everybody else do that. But for you, you're like, okay, this is all me anyway. How much of me do I really want to know? That will be the question you have to ask yourself. How much of you do you really want to know? And that will determine how deep or how far you go into yourself. How much you are willing to see. Because again, you can see yourself as godly, but it's not until you see your own demons. Now you begin to question: are you as godly as you think you was? So all this requires you to begin to question yourself and your ego, which that's why it's called an ego death. Essentially, you go through an ego death because you come to the realization you are not who you appear to be. You are not who you appear to be. What the ego appears to be is not real. It is a construction, a mental construction based off of how much you know about what's going on in your superconscious and your unconscious and your subconscious mind. How much of these activities are you aware of? Are you aware of your emotional intelligence? Are you aware of why you feel the way you feel? Is it something temporary? Is it something permanent? All these things, again, go into our daily decision making. So it influences us indirectly, whether you realize it or not. So it's to our benefit to know all 360 degrees of our cipher, and that's when magic or numbers become magical because you're not afraid to work with whatever number you need to work with to get the job done. You're not picking and choosing. Oh, I like this frequency, so I just want to mess with that frequency. Well, I don't like this frequency, so I'm going to stay away from it. You're not picking and choosing. Some things obviously are going to be more harmonic, and some things are going to be a lot more staticky. Some energies are required or will require you to tame them. Some energies are naturally negative. Just like some energies are naturally positive, some energies are naturally negative. And those negative energies or entities need to be tamed in order for you to be able to manipulate them to your benefit. That's what it comes down to. Mastery of self. Know thyself. Manifest or knowledge being brought into manifestation. The knowledge is you. You are the foundation. You are the origin. This is a projection from your consciousness, but how conscious are you really? And that will determine the quality of your magical essence. How magical are you really, and do you really believe it? You begin to believe the more you dream and remember your dreams because you make those intentions to do so. You make the intention to pull from the superconscious mind. You make the intention to feel through the subconscious. All these take intent, and eventually that intent becomes magical when you activate the formulas the way they should be activated and not how you expect them to be activated. So be full. Exercise all 360 degrees of your cipher, and you will see for yourself the aspects of you that you thought were the most hated becomes the aspects of you that you fall in love with, even more than the attributes that you think you are in love with right now. So we'll hold it right there. We're not gonna be on here all night. Just wanted to give y'all a quick analysis of where my mind is currently. And again, I just already did the 11-hour shift. I literally just got home. And I'm like, okay, let me just turn the camera on. So none of this was prepared. I didn't wake up thinking that I'm gonna make a video, but it was the time. So I'm back. So just giving y'all a quick analysis, quick sneak peek into the future, and we will be back. Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. It's just that simple, right?